Hey, this is Marty Friedman, and you're watching Sonic Perspectives.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another interview of Sonic Perspectives. I'm Rodrigo, and my guest today is the inimitable guitarist Marty Friedman. Marty, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, we're here to promote your new album, Drama, which came out on May 17th. An incredible collection of songs. First of all, let me ask you about the decision to record it in Italy.
Yeah, I went to Italy because I have a very dear friend there named
Mm,
Franco Piona. He has probably the biggest and most elaborate collection of vintage guitars in the world, and he maintains them. He's a master luthier. So, sorry. So he was able to kind of choose the best guitars for the music that I was trying to make. So it was an opportunity that I've never had before. I've never used vintage guitars before. I've only used my signature models and things like that. But
right.
this time I used my signature models and just an amazing collection of vintage guitars, and they're all in Italy. So I went to Italy twice to record all the guitars for the album.
Right. And I see a lot of reviews comparing to scenes as opposed to the heaviness of Inferno and Wall of Sound. Did you feel the need to slow down a bit after two high octane releases like those, or?
Well, yeah, I always knew that I wanted to make a very romantic orchestral type of album, but that takes a whole different mindset. It takes a whole different casting of players, and
Yeah,
it's actually a little bit more work. And I always had it in the back of my mind to make an album like this, and finally it's come to reality, especially because I had such access to so many beautiful guitars.
right, right. And well, talk to me about the track Triumph. It has been released before as Thunder March and also as Triumph in another release a few years ago. Why did you feel the need to revisit it?
I just never got it right before.
Right.
I wrote a very long thing on one of my social media posts outlining the entire story of how that song was first written and released so many times, maybe 5 or 6 different times.
Oh, wow.
Live album, studio album, rock version, quiet version, demo version, and they've all been good, but none of them have been great, and were none of them was the perfect version of the song. And I always knew that. And I always hope one day I'm going to get this thing right so I can sleep finally.
Right.
And this time, after many, many failed attempts, many different demos, different orchestrations, different instruments, it's such a simple melody, but maybe that's why it was so incredibly difficult to get
Yeah.
an arrangement that I thought was perfect. So now I
Yeah.
finally got it, and I just can't wait to stop thinking about it.
Awesome. I'm glad you got it off your chest and off your fingers too.
I'll say it's a
Yeah.
load off my mind.
Yeah. And other than Triumph, did you write the song specifically for this release, or have you had them for a while, or?
I wrote the song specifically for this album.
Mm,
The one vocal song, Dead of Winter,
mm.
it was a song that I had written a while before, and it was actually sung in Japanese, but we
Oh,
never released it in Japan. And we even played it live a couple times in Japanese with singing in Japanese, but just never released the song. And I always knew it was a great song. Again, kind of like Triumph, we never got the perfect version. And now we've got two perfect versions. There's one in Spanish and one's in English. And those are the only vocal songs on the record.
yeah.
But the Spanish one is kind of like a love letter to my Spanish speaking friends and fans out there. And it was a long journey in getting this song done, but I'm very
Yeah.
happy with it too.
Did you write the lyrics to Dos Rebeldes? I mean, I know you're fluent in
No,
Japanese,
no,
but
of course not.
uh,
I didn't even write the Japanese lyrics. I mean, I'm a
oh.
terrible lyricist. Just absolutely couldn't write lyrics for anything.
Right.
Um, but yeah, the Spanish version was written by my friend Steven in a band called Apollo 7
Right.
or Apollo Siete. I'm sure that's how they
Siete.
say it.
Sí, yeah.
Siete, yeah. And the English version, Dead of Winter, was written by Chris Brooks from Like a Storm, who sang
Mm.
it. So
Okay.
I stay away from the lyrics.
Yeah. And one thing I noticed as well, I mean, even with the songs that don't have vocals, the guitar melodies are similar to vocal lines. And I think you've always written somehow in that style. How do you come up with guitar parts that sound like vocal lines? Is that deliberate or?
Well, thank you very much for pointing that out because that's a very big point for me when I'm making music, consciously and subconsciously.
Mm,
I'm just being a singer. I'm trying to use my guitar to express in a way that a vocalist would. So even when I'm playing guitar solos, they're not really guitar licks, all the time. Sometimes, of course, there's a few guitar licks in there, but if you take, like, for example, the guitar solo to the song Dead of Winter,
mm,
there's no licks in there. It's like it's like a full minute long guitar solo, and it's pretty climactic and it builds up and it takes you a long way and tells a story and all that, but there's no guitar licks. There's no, like, I don't know, the classic guitar licks or the trendy guitar licks. It's just all melodies.
yeah.
And I think it's something that I've developed over my career as expressing more of a vocalist than a guitarist. And it suits the way I write music. And it just I think when people say that you can tell my guitar playing very quickly. When you hear my playing, you can tell that it's me. I think it's because of what you just said.
I bet. Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
people don't immediately pick that up, but it's because I'm trying to be a vocalist on guitar rather than being, a guitar player,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is kind of weird, but that's how it works.
Yeah, yeah. And to me, I mean, one of my favorites is Mirage,
Thank you.
one of the most complex ones, exploring different moods and throughout the song. It's almost proggy to me. I don't know if you'll agree with that statement or not,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Well,
yeah,
thank you. It's
yeah,
yeah, it could be kind of proggy.
yeah,
A lot of my stuff, it's it it's proggy, but there's not like the typical prog elements. There's not like big odd time signature sections,
yeah,
and there's not it doesn't really sound like prog music, but it's quite complex, like you said, yes.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and the way this came out is being Mirage, the song Mirage, why it came out so complex is because I gave the drummer Greg Bissonette, who's one of my favorites in the world, I told him to take the whole second half of the song, which is like 3 minutes long,
right.
stay in one tempo, and just do a drum solo that starts from zero, very calm and peaceful. And by the end of the 3 minutes, make it a completely loud chaos, like an airplane flying noise. So that's really quite a challenging thing to be asked to do.
Of course.
But he
Yeah,
did that. There was no music. There was no music. There was just a click track. I said, stay in this tempo, build it up
right.
gradually. And I took his track and I wrote guitar parts to it. And I wrote
Oh,
bass
wow.
parts to it. And I wrote melodies to that track. So it's really, in that sense, it's a very progressive way of thinking, but it's not, for example, like Rush or Dream Theater or
Yeah.
anything like that. It's just a very perverted way to write a song. And actually, it could have been a huge failure. It was just an experiment. But as I was doing it, it was started to come out really good and exciting. So
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah. And well, talk to me about having Greg on this album. He's a true legend on drums. He worked with so many important artists, uh, Ringo Starr, David Lee Roth, and so on. I know he played on some of the other albums that you did before, right?
Right.
Yeah.
He's in my opinion, he's the best ballad drummer in the world for playing ballads. I wouldn't even think to go anywhere else but Greg. I'm sure there's a lot of other good ballad players out there, but I've known Greg for almost 30 years, and when it comes to like a ballad or a kind of a ballad type of song, his touch is just so perfect. It just sounds like a hit song when he plays. Of course, he can do a whole lot more than just ballads, but I think ballads are like the holy grail for drummers, and most very flashy and fancy drummers have quite a hard time making ballads sound professional.
Yeah.
It's really something that it's kind of a lifestyle choice. You have to be doing ballads a lot. And how many hit ballads has Greg played? It's probably, you
A
can't count
million.
such a number.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
when you get him in there, he knows exactly what the money beats are, what the fills are. And then when you try to throw him a curveball, he can immediately do odd kind of any kind of request you ask, like in the song Deep End on this record.
Mm.
It's a very straight up ballad, but in the middle of it, it gets extremely complex for the player, but not for the listener. That's the trick. I don't want the listener to think it's complex. I just want the listener to feel something. I want the listener to feel like there's some tension going on. And like
Yeah.
in the song Mirage, that drum part in the beginning, that's like ultra progressive. But with the guitar playing over it, it just sounds kind of easy to listen to.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
Greg's magic.
Yeah, that's the trick for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And well, when it comes to guitar in pop music, maybe you get asked that question a lot. I don't know, but the presence of guitar in pop music is declining steadily to the point where you can barely hear it nowadays, right? It's almost non-existent. What's your take on that? Are you at peace with that, or?
Well, I mean, I live in Japan, and Japan, it's the opposite. Even in pop music, the top 10, maybe 8 of the songs have strong guitar parts in them.
Oh, wow.
You know, it can be rock or hard rock or pop or dance music, and even very heavy stuff sometimes gets up there. Japan has stringed instruments in their history, like, the Japanese instrument, the shamisen
Hmm.
and the koto. So Japanese ears are used to the sound of strings being plucked, and it's a very natural sound here in Japan. So it's not going away anytime soon. But America is a young country
Yeah.
and with a very, very shallow history. So guitar is trendy at some times and out of fashion at other times.
Yeah.
But the good thing is, in America, you don't need to be in the top 10 to be touring and playing aggressive guitar music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but the top 10 does represent the mainstream of America, and it's kind of sad that there's not much guitar in it.
Yeah. I agree with you. Yeah. Yeah. One question I get, and I did get asked this question when I thought I was going to interview you from the Megadeth fans is, what was the best and worst part of being in Megadeth in those years?
The best part, obviously, the people. I loved the band, the members of the band, and we were brothers, and I still consider us brothers. And the fact that every time we played, we knew that we were just going to go out and do an amazing show and just give 1,000%. And knowing that every night that was going to happen was is a wonderful feeling, 150, 200 times a year.
Yeah.
You just know, okay, tonight we're going to go out there and we're going to kill it. So that's my best thing about the band. And I don't really remember any worst thing
Right.
about it.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. Fair enough. Yeah. To me, I told you this before we started rolling, but the biggest memory I have of your time in the band was seeing you live on Rock in Rio in 1991. We had Judas Priest on the Painkiller Tour, Queensryche on the Empire Tour, Guns N' Roses at the top of their game, Sepultura, and you guys. You remember that show?
Oh, of course. Who doesn't remember Rock in Rio?
Yeah.
I remember we were so happy to play there. I think we played an hour maybe. But we wanted to get as many songs in the set as possible, so we played them all at a faster tempo
I noticed. Yeah.
so we could stick
Yeah.
one more song in there.
Yeah.
And that's a very, very fun and very childish thing to do, but that's just in our nature, and that's how we were. This is important. We want to play as many songs as we can.
Right.
Let's
Right.
just barrel through these things. And
Yeah.
it was just a wonderful, wonderful time for me.
Yeah. Back to your beginning as part of the Shrapnel cast, what was it like to be alongside Yngwie Malmsteen, Paul Gilbert, Tony McAlpine? Was there a sense of competition between you guys at the time, or more friendship? And are you still connected with any of them?
I don't think there was really much competition within the guys on the label, at least not from us. For myself and for Jason Becker, we did a lot of projects together.
Hmm.
Um, we were kind of in our own little world, and we weren't really watching these other guys. Um, we weren't really following what they were doing and trying to react to it in any way whatsoever. Um, but there was a lot of people on the same label recording in the same studio complex at the same time. And I always remember a very, um, what's the word, camaraderie.
Mm.
Like Greg Howe and Richie Kotzen would be there a lot, and we would always jam together and trade licks with each other and show each other how to play certain things and learn from each other. And it was a very, very friendly environment when we were together,
Right.
um, loaning each other equipment or whatever. But otherwise, I don't think we were too aware of. It wasn't like we were part of this movement or anything. It's
Right.
completely in our own world.
Yeah. I mean, for the fans, it was kind of a movement. Me as a fan, I saw that the Shrapnel guys. Oh my God, we worshipped you guys. But yeah, I guess by what you're saying, there was more camaraderie than anything else. Yeah.
I think we would have been good friends with anyone else who would have been in the studio.
Hmm.
But that studio that we recorded in, a place called Prairie Sun, was kind of exclusive for the Shrapnel players. Um, so there was always like different Shrapnel guys coming in and out of that place. So inevitably you would run into each other, and then, everybody wants to trade licks with each other because
Yeah.
everybody's got a lot to show. And
Yeah.
so I remember that, but yeah, we didn't follow the others' music too terribly much.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, and you and many others from that time played in Jason Becker's Triumphant Hearts album. You did the title track and Valley of Fire.
Yeah,
First of all,
right.
thank you for that because the whole album is amazing. Secondly, that must have been quite an experience to be part of that album, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, Jason gave me the best part of the record, the title song
Yeah.
and the climactic play, the big climactic solo, he gave it to me. So I'm
Yeah.
very thankful. And it was a wonderful song that he wrote, Triumphant Hearts, and the whole album. He's just such a genius. Um, Stuff he comes up with is so far evolved. And
Yeah.
it's just really amazing that he's evolved without playing the instrument. Even without playing the instrument, he's evolved
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
the same pace or even faster and farther than he would have with the instrument. It's just unbelievable. There's nothing else like him out there. And so
Yeah.
like when I started working on that with Jason, I was just again blown away with his constant, ever flowing musicality, and very honored to play on that record.
Yeah. And when it comes to Cacophony, I mean, I think you played Ninja a few years ago, but not much more. Is it because you want to focus on your solo material more, or is there a reason behind not revisiting those tracks as often as possible, or
Yeah, I mean, playing Cacophony music without Jason
does make
wouldn't
sense?
really
Yeah.
be something I'm interested in, but I'm very, very happy that people have followed my career for that long. So when those people come to my show, if I like give them a little bit, if I just kind of wink my eye at them by playing something, a little piece of Ninja or a little
Yeah.
piece of Tornado of Souls,
Yeah.
it's kind of
Yeah.
like, I appreciate you guys being here for me all of this time. Of course, I have 17 solo albums, so the majority of my music comes from all that.
Yeah.
And but I obviously love my fans very much for supporting me through all of the projects. So yeah, I do little bits of, that
Yeah,
music.
yeah, fair enough. And well, you were never part of the G3 tours that Joe Satriani organizes. I know you did a one-off in Japan once. Would you consider
Right.
doing a tour like that, or were you after
I would
offered?
love to. Let me go on record here right
Yeah,
now and say, please invite me to do G3. I will do it in a heartbeat. Um, like you said, I did guest with them in Japan,
yeah,
and I had such a blast, and it was so fun to see the audience absorb that much guitar.
yeah,
And I just think it's a fantastic project that I would love to be a part of. So I'm
yeah,
officially appealing to whoever's putting that together.
yeah.
Yes, I would be happy to do it again.
Maybe this interview will do the trick. We don't know, but let's
I
hope
hope
so.
so.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
call you if it happens.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, and I have a question about Japan because I know several bands that do okay in North America, but they're like gods in Japan. One of them being, my fellow compatriots of Angra, for example, other ones being Mr. Big, for example. How do you explain Japan's fascination with hard rock and metal?
Well, I think the two bands that you mentioned have a pretty high level of guitar playing in those bands.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's a good point for Japanese fans. Like I said before, Japanese people are very much used to sound of stringed instruments played in a very advanced fashion. So,
yeah,
groups like you mentioned and a few others that feature a lot of really elaborate guitar playing have kind of a little advantage in Japan rather than in other countries. And also, those type of things, if you have a singer who's like, a good-looking singer, that helps.
right, right, right. Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a story with me in Japan. I once left Perth, Australia to go to Tokyo, Japan to see Dream Theater play twice. And I was impressed about the audience. I mean, they vibrate so much and resonate with the songs, but in between songs, dead silence, right? They're respectful of the band and everything, right? Is that the same with you when you play?
Oh, well, it's different on depending on the venue and depending on like if you played a festival,
Hmm.
people are a lot more rowdy. But actually, oftentimes it's the opposite. It's like they're very quiet during the songs
Because they want to
because they want to
listen.
hear
Yeah.
every note.
Yeah.
They paid their money, they want to hear. And in between the songs, they just go completely wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
of course, I'm used to that now. I've been in Japan forever, but like I remember before I lived here, coming here on tour, when you're getting ready to go on stage and play, it's silent in the audience. You don't know if anyone's even there.
Right.
Like you standing on the side of your stage, getting ready to go out, and you think that no one showed up. Of course, when you get there, everybody's there, but they're listening so intensely.
Yeah.
It's kind of makes you a little bit nervous because you don't want to make a mistake or anything like that.
Right. Right.
Um, Well, in other countries, people are going crazy all the time, and it seems like no one's listening. So it's a lot kind of your nerves are eased in that situation. But
Right.
Japan, no, they're listening. You got to perform. You got to bring the A game all the time. So once you get used to that, it gets really easy to play in other countries in the world.
Right, right. One question I had is about your picking technique. I mean, it's very unique, of course, and very, of you. You can instantly recognize that. But I have a feeling that if you had taken classes for longer, that's something they would probably try to correct your picking style, right? What would be your suggestion as a learning path on guitar without stifling growth and your own identity as a player?
Well, I took lessons for about 8 months, maybe,
Mm,
and nobody said anything about my hand. I'm sure if there was a correct way to play the guitar, I wasn't doing it, but nobody told me.
right.
And I've come to believe that it's impossible to have a correct way of playing guitar, um, because I've been playing guitar forever, and
Yeah.
I'm doing fine. And I've I don't think the way I play benefits me or harms me.
Hmm.
Um, I don't really even think it's that important. I didn't even notice it until I started releasing albums and doing interviews. People noticed it.
Pointing out.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
in my band, when I was a kid playing in bands, nobody said anything.
Right.
But it was the same way back then. So it doesn't bother me. And I don't think it helps me. I don't think it looks cool. It's just one of those things.
Yeah. Fair enough. Two more questions and we're done. Tell me about your autobiography, Dreaming Japanese, which will come out, I think, in December. What's included in that? I mean, a lot of artists avoid doing autobiographies because fans just want to know about the dirt. Have you managed to avoid that, or I hope you
No, all
have?
the dirt is in there, man. All the
Okay.
dirt, all the dirt. There's not really any what do you call it?
Animosity or
Everything is just
Hmm.
it's the story. So if you're slightly interested in my story from any angle, whether it be why I left an extremely successful band to start from zero in Japan
Hmm.
and then eclipse everything I've done in the past, or you want to know about the day-to-day life of being in the bands that I was in and the relationships between the people. Um, it's all of the things that I could never say in interviews because those topics never come up, talking
Right.
about your first sexual experience or first love or family life and dynamics between the people in the bands. Um, all of the things that I never talked about before.
Hmm.
I've always kept my private life very private and even band life very private. So I think people would be extremely interested in hearing what it was like for me working with every single person I've worked with in my career that you may know and some that you may not know, and how all these people shaped my life on a personal level. And it's just all the personal details that never come up in interviews or in any kind of media. I didn't want to say anything that people had read before.
Right.
So that was kind of criteria, if
Hmm.
it's something like in an interview. One thing that kind of bugged me about Gene Simmons' books, I'm a big Kiss fan. I've read all the
Hmm.
books. Anytime I read Gene's books, it sounds like there's so many sound bites from things I've heard him say in interviews.
Oh.
Um, and I know all the stories already, and they're all very good stories. But learning from that, I wanted to tell only stories that people don't know. So
Right.
that was my biggest criteria.
Awesome. Looking forward to that. Circling back to drama, what are you planning in terms of touring to promote this album? Any chance of coming to Canada? I live in Toronto now, by the way. So,
Oh,
Yeah.
Canada, I would love to come to Canada. We are right now in the process of, you know, planning out the tours. We've done a couple festivals in Asia. We have a Tokyo show this week,
Hmm.
a couple shows in Tokyo, but the world tour is probably going to start later in the year, early next year,
Okay.
and we're going to be on tour for a long, long time after that, and hopefully hit Canada and play everywhere. We've already got some festivals for next year lined up. And now we're just kind of strategizing where the main tours are going to happen. And
Right.
this is
Right.
going to be a big one. It's going to be a big one.
Awesome. Well, can't wait to see you guys live. Oh, you live once again, man. Well, anyway,
Thank you very much.
thank you so much for the interview. I hope to see you here sometime soon. But yeah, all the best with the release, the new book, and everything. Thanks, Marty.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank you.
Rodrigo. Nice to meet you. Talk
Cheers.
to you
Take care.
soon.
Bye.
Bye bye.